Good morning and welcome to the MSFA 2021 virtual convention. During this session, Maryland Fire Chiefs Association Chief Chaplain Chappie Bauer will be helping you understand how to manage the psychosocial and spiritual health of personnel under your command. Chief Chaplain Bauer, raised in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, received a Bachelor's of Science in Biology and an additional Bachelor of Science in Medical Technology from Lebanon Valley College. He earned his Master of Divinity in Urban Ministry from the Alliance Theological Seminary and was ordained by the Christian and Missionary Alliance. Chappy is also a graduate of the prestigious U.S. Army Command and General Staff College at West Point. Chappy retired from the U.S. Army with the rank of colonel after 31 years of military service. Presently, the Director of Clinical Chaplain Services and Education at Western Maryland Hospital Center in Hagerstown, Chappy also serves in a number of fire service-related organizations. I'd like to ask you to welcome Chappie Bauer.
Thank you, Rick. Just a little bit about my fire background. Yes, I was in the military for 31 years, but I was in reserve components, and I was a pastor of a smaller church, but the fire chaplain for Engine Company 22 in Valley Cottage, New York. From there, I told them I was not just going to be a knife and fork chaplain. I wanted to be a really fire chaplain. So I went and became a certified interior firefighter with New York State, and then continued on with the fire chaplaincy. I'm serving as Region 2 on the MEMAS CISM crisis team. And I'm also the county chaplain for Washington County. Some of the certifications I have in the psychosocial area, I'm the board certified in clinical chaplaincy with the College of Pastoral Supervision and Psychotherapy, board certified as well by the National Association of Christian Chaplains, another certification, the Association of Certified Chaplains, and two others. This title may seem a little vexing at the beginning of things, but psychosocial spirituality? What are we talking about that? Well, that's what we're going to be learning about today, and realizing that it's very much a part of leadership and supervision of people in the fire and EMS service. The fire chief is the operation command. Now, yes, whoever is there first at the scenes, the IC, but in essence, the looking and taking the fire service in a whole, the chief of the firehouse or department has various responsibilities. But what do they do? What are the duties of the fire chief? Well, they're numerous. They are numerous, and when we get to look at some of these, a minute or two, you're going to see these duties are very, very much encompassing the command, control, and leadership. All have a responsibility with pointing back to the fire chief. Those responsibilities, wow, there's a lot of them. Well, how does the chief handle all these responsibilities? Simple answer, you're going to say, duh. He delegates responsibilities he delegates the authority to carry out these various things, because authority can be delegated to other people, but the ultimate responsibility cannot be delegated. He holds the responsibility for everything that happens or fails to happen, whether he knew about it or not. This, by the way, it's also the same if you're a volunteer company and you have a president of the company. When the company is in the house and not out, the president's in charge. The chief is in charge of the tactical once the doors are open. Well, let's think about this. We have multi-million-dollar equipment, towers, $5 million, 2.5 for pumpers, 1,500s and more. I'm sure my dating some of my money. But what is the most valuable asset for a department? And by the way, let me stop and say here, if you want to talk or you want to say something, click on the chat and you can just type over the questions and I'll pick them up and we'll get to them. But let's think about this. What is the most valuable component of the fire department? Ooh. Well, the Fire Rescue Service, Fire Rescue 1, has put out the critical roles of a volunteer fire chief. Now, I know that we have various combined and joined and paid companies and so on, but I'm really facing this and directing this to the volunteer component more so than the paid full-time firefighters, the career firefighters. Because the volunteer firefighters have a myriad of other duties besides just taking care of fire EMS work. The leadership, how volunteer chiefs can effectively serve communities and value their members. John Buckman III hit it right on the nose and value their members. Now, when you look at fire chiefs' positions, remember I asked what are the duties or the major responsibilities? Here is a listing taken right off of the computer from the International Fire Chiefs Association as a template for when you write your fire chief's position description. And notice that it has purpose, the 13 major responsibilities, directing and projecting and developing, all 13, but none of them mention the personal safety of his people, physical or psychosocial spiritual. And guess what? There is a responsibility for that. It does say about the performance criteria that maintaining awareness of supervisory programs, establishing department procedures, and effecting recruiting, but who is carrying out all these things that he is filling out the criteria for? Let's look at a changing face here in the 21st century of firefighting. Changes have come in construction and engineering, from light wood construction to the materials now that are in a light steel, and then also the increase in the flammable materials, which used to be response times. If you were later getting there, it was not cooking as quickly, but with the hydrocarbons and the components that are made now, they not only burn faster, they burn hotter. So there's less time between ignition and non-tenable conditions. You get increase in volume and calls and demands now. There's more and more people that are calling. I know that my latest figures, which may be stinted a little bit, is there's a 13-to-1 ratio EMS runs to fire. Especially with COVID now, this is now increasing in the violence and the threats of injury. You don't know when you're showing up if somebody is going to be doing something nasty to you or to your chief or to your people. You've got changing social norms. The things that were acceptable back earlier are not acceptable now. And some of the things that are acceptable now really are not being accepted by the old guys. The domestic terrorism, the mass casualties. Well, you know, there's so much that's going on that the fire chief has to keep in mind. But at the scene, for instance, we talked about there was no delineation in the changing of the position description for safety. But we do have a consideration of the safety, the physical safety of people. But what is that safety officer doing? He is delegated to have additional eyes and ears to keep the person who's responsible involved with the fact that the chief is responsible for the physical safety of all the personnel under his or her command. Now while on duty, who's the ultimate responsibility for the psychosocial spirituality health of all the personnel, whether it's paid, combined, or total in the fire departments? Give you a moment to answer that. Who do you think's responsible for that part of safety? Yep, the chief. And his officers all have a responsibility, but the ultimate responsibility is held with the fire chief or in-house president. To whom can the chief delegate the managing the chief's psychosocial spiritual program? He delegates the safety part to the safety officer. Well, who can he delegate it? Hey, to another line officer. Okay, take your line officers who already have 17 things in the 10-pound bag to put it in, tell them you're also going to be the psychosocial spiritual program director, manager. Or you have special staff, like this, the safety officer. Is there a special staff officer that could do that? Let's look at how the changing role of the chaplain, the fire chaplain, is in the command incident system. You have the general or straight line officers that are in there. And then you have special staff officers, public information, liaisons, there's your safety officer. But for the emotional spirituality care officer, which is really the chaplain's position, the changing face of the fire service, I mean, there's just no way of getting around the immense amount of responsibilities that fire officers hold, not just over pecuniary liability for equipment, but also for the life and safety of their people, which, by the way, is the answer to who is the most and what is the most valuable part of your department, your people. And along with that, there is a thing called held responsible in superiority. Responsibility of fire officers have been expanded beyond just the tactics and strategies and tactics of firefighting into recruiting, retention, preventing carcinogenic exposures, critical incident stress, PTSD, and other psychosocial concerns that could be added. Well, so also has the role of the fire EMS chaplain changed over these times as well. For the ugly truth about firefighting is the public, you know, they really will never have the guilt of constant mental playback, wondering if only we were there a little bit faster or have done a little bit better or with more poise or a little more heroic. They'll never feel the profound sadness that we do as a result of seeing too much. For an EMS worker is to the civilian world what a combat medic is on the battlefield. And the firefighter is to the civilian world what the infantryman is to the military. Other people will never understand what it is about us, for they will never breathe the smell of death that lingers, or the smell of burnt flesh that never goes away. They'll never wonder how they will ever make it home or get on with things after they've witnessed. That was Michael Mars wrote that. For the role of the fire chaplain has changed significantly. The old time and understanding is, oh, it's the pastor down the street, the priest who will come, and they'll come and they'll ring bells and blow smoke and send, you can have other people. Hey, Johnson, you're the chaplain today or this year. What does that mean? Well, here, take the get well cards and be sure you send them out, and make sure you send flowers. Or by the way, maybe we'll get the pastor down the street to come in and do the grace over the annual banquet. We'll mark him down as the chaplain. That was the old way of thinking, the old way of doing things. But the new reality is that the chaplain is to recommend, implement, and manage the Fire Chiefs Psychosocial Spirituality program. Notice I said manage, not own, because whose program is it? The Fire Chiefs. Now, you got some questions you may come up here about the difference between spirituality and religiosity. Don't get faked out by that word spiritual and think that it means flat out Christian. We're going to be talking about and doing Bible talks and all that. Because spirituality is related to and consists of the things that happen to a person's spirit, because the total human person is body, mind, and spirit. We take care of the body with a safety officer, the mind and spirit. Who takes care of that for you in the fire EMS world? For spirituality deals with the things like who or what gives you meaning in life. What's the purpose? You know, in school, you're going to learn the what, where, when, how about all the stuff, but they'll never teach you the why. Why did that happen? Why are you here? What's the problem? Where do you get these answers? Religiosity is equated to a state of religiousness. It's doctrines and prayers and sacerdotal type things for priesthood or the pastorate. See, chaplains are getting with spirituality, not religiosity. For chaplains, the needs of the human spirit reflected on and reconciled for those things which bring strength, hope, peace, and a positive movement to the future. Here's a 79-cent word you may not know. It's one of those fancy seminary words. There is no proselytizing. That means a chaplain may not can, may, forbidden, may not try to convert a Jewish to be Christian, a Christian to be Muslim, a Muslim to be Jewish, or any other religion. You stay off of the religions. They are not permitted to do that. Now, the operating guidelines. The Maryland Fire Chiefs Association has back on July 2014 adopted a standard of operating guidelines for the special staff officer, the fire chaplain. Now notice, if you have a safety officer as a special staff, remember the two different lines? The chaplain is on a special staff officer, because a chaplain is a position, not an additional duty. That's an important thing to remember. A chaplain is a position, not an additional duty. These guidelines state what a fire chaplain may, mean that they're permitted to do in the state of Maryland. Now, the individual fire and EMS companies may define by their bylaws roles that are more inclusive than this, but Only those which have been sent through all of the legal world and so on and have been adopted, the guidelines adopted for the duties of a fire chaplain in the state of Maryland. And these fall into basically three areas, the duties. Now, before we go further, I wanted to enumerate or point out that that there is no compensation for the performance. No compensation. When a chaplain's doing something, he is doing his work as a member of your company, your department, and he will attain anything you do, but he will not get an honorarium or a gift, love gift or something. That's his duty to do these things. And, pardon me, and that's enumerated back here, that a chaplain must be available. Expenses may be reimbursed for mileage, training, very important training, travel, but they do not get paid anything other than the firefighter one does. The documentation of this is to have adequate documentation so that we can make sure that we know for sure how and what that chaplain can do, because not all chaplains in the fire are going to be masters in divinity ordained in some religious order or sect. And as such, they have different levels. And the Maryland Fire Chiefs right now Standards Committee is working to develop 4 levels of chaplains. And one of those levels, which is the level 3, is going to require ordination. And what is the difference in ordination? Well, in the state of Maryland, if a person is ordained, then they have privileged information in the state of the law, meaning whatever the person comes to that chaplain and talks about, as long as they're not talking to somebody else about it, is privileged information between them. This is the same as a priestly confidence between the chaplain and their God. That's where the hitch comes in with peer support. Peer support is a wonderful way of trying to start and get people aware and watching people that they are not having trouble. But that primarily works only in the paid departments where you have 24 or 36 hours people living, and you can see. With the volunteers, they have a run, they have a quick wash, then they go home. They may not see somebody another for 3 or 4 days or whatever. They don't know what's going on. So yes, there's a place for peer support, absolutely, but it's not the solution to the psychosocial spirituality health. It's a solution, but not the. And in addition to that, the equality of services is the chaplain is a chaplain for everyone. Doesn't matter whether they have what their background is, red or yellow, black or white, whatever their religious persuasion, whatever their political beliefs are, whatever their culture is. That chaplain is a chaplain to everyone, or he's a chaplain, or he or she is a chaplain to nobody. Chaplaincy meets the psychosocial spirituality health of your personnel. And it's not a matter that they come in and demand. All of the chaplains we're training, and I train chaplains, I'm board certified to do that. We say, listen, my friend, don't go strutting your stuff. You're going to have to earn the respect. You're going to have to earn the way in. And the only way you're going to be there is to be there. Be there. When I tell them be there, they say beware, beware. No, I say be there. Wherever the action is going on or whatever, be there. Don't just show up on the meeting nights, but go down to the firehouse now and then. Have a meal with them once in a while. Maybe if it's you're working with your training on a Thursday night and everybody else is doing SCBA checkout and so on. Know who's watching John all alone over here, and you see he's depressed and following. The officer's taking care of the training, but who's watching for this psychosocial spirituality health potential problem? The primary functions, yes, of the members, the first function we have is as a staff officer for members, is to have visitations. We will have visitations, and there we go. Visitation is also in the home where requested, or when you feel close enough to do so, or when asked. You are becoming, if you're a chaplain, you're becoming the liaison between the ill person or the person that may be in the hospital. Now, here is something we're developing in Washington County, which is very, very important to understand, that a fire chaplain 1, 2, or 3 is going to be able to be dispatched to the hospital. And they, by the fact that they are the chaplain part of the fire department, become the liaison between the hospital and the incident commander and the chief. You have your own way of working it. And that is how that works as the duty of a hospital liaison. Just this other week, we had an explosion here in Washington County, and there was a flight down to the burn center. My chaplain contacted the command chaplain of the Baltimore City Fire Department, who contacted his chaplain, who went over and found out what was going on and what the status was and so on, reported back, came to me, and I gave it back to the chaplain, who told the fire incident commander what was going on with his person down in Baltimore. Because chaplains are going to be your liaison officers as well. We can assist as part of the member assistance in pointing out and bringing up personnel matters, like the benefits, the way things are changing, and the way that you can get this or the LOSAP points or so on. These are all things that they become a conduit of information to individual families and events. Or when they are qualified within the state of Maryland, they can perform weddings and funerals. When they are qualified, and if they are qualified for counseling, even then, the chaplain may not charge a fee or accept a gratuity for any form of counseling service that may not refer any member to any other counsel service in which the chaplain has a financial or beneficial affiliation. In other words, even though we're board certified clinical chaplains understood in the state, we can't charge for counseling because we're doing our job as a level 3 or level 2 fire chaplain. And who's following up and watching out for your retired firefighters? There's an awful lot of firefighter funerals that I go to that are not metabolically, he just died of natural causes. The second area of responsibility is in the area of recruitment and retention. First off, the chaplain is the morale officer. I didn't say moral officer, is the morale officer, who periodically will seek around and keep the fire officers and the president informed on how are things going, or there's some tickies that people are grumbling down there. You might want to go down and check things out. A retention counselor. Holy mackerel. Chief and fire officers, you got plenty of time to sit down. And I'm sick and tired of hearing people say, well, we should have an exit interview and fill out and figure out why they left. That's like shutting the barn door after the horse is gone. You need somebody whose purpose is to be focused, as the safety officer is at a fire. The psychosocial spiritual chaplain is for the personnel. Focused to find out and to help deal with. And maybe somebody's got a problem they just need to talk to. Or maybe, like up here, one time we had a fire that was so devastating, a 23-year veteran had said, I can't take this, I quit. We went down, spoke with him, helped him through this, helped him to get that proper understanding. He's now back fully running and fine. Has 23 years of experience. Who do you have on your staff, Chief, Captain, Lieutenant, President, who's going to take the time to be able to go and sit with that person? You also have fire department responsibilities at the incident. Now, the chaplain never goes over that first hose. He doesn't get into the red area. But he can stay in where the rehab is, where your rehab truck and your rehab facilities are there, because he can be another set of eyes to see those firefighters who are all jacked up with adrenaline, want to get back in there, whether or not, hey, Chief, I think Johnson better take another 15 minutes. He's working through some problems right now. We also help, unfortunately, the chaplains in filling out all the paperwork and so on in a line of duty injury or line of duty death. And by the way, a chaplain never announces the death to the family. That's a command responsibility. Line item command responsibility. Chief, battalion chief, captain, lieutenant. It's your responsibility for the health, safety, and welfare. And now the chaplain will go along with the person who's going to announce the death and stay with the person after they leave. But they never say, Mrs. Johnson, I'm sorry that your son, Joey, died tonight in a fire. They attend fire department events. Sometimes the chiefs can't make it, so they'll send another fire officer. Well, who are you going to send? Well, you have another one's opportunity to send in your stead, your special staff officer, the chaplain. You communicate with firefighters, your program directors, and we assist in training, in help teaching and resources. That's what they can do in the state of Maryland. That's what we have available for you in the state of Maryland to help. But keep in mind that approximately 30% of the urban firefighters have symptoms consistent with post-traumatic, it's post-traumatic stress disorder is something that is really, it's a last stage, but we'll just go to that and say going on their way to post-traumatic. But after you have had so many runs and seen so many dead people and seen so many accidents and helped cut out things, it will get to you. Why? Because EMS personnel, you're the civilian equivalent of a combat medic. Firefighter, you're an equivalent to the infantry in the combat field. So the same PTSD stress that they get, you get too. Chaplains also support and assist the chief in his program. I'm stressing it, it's his, not the chaplain's. With the retention, diffusing, working with personnel during stressful family situations. Captain, do you have time to go over and check that out? Lieutenant? Deputy Chief? Or do we wait till it gets so big the guy says, I quit? Assisting in interpersonal house conflicts. Okay, guys, they used to say, what does a chaplain do in the Army when he's on the general staff? I would tell them I usually go to the meetings and remind people on the staff table to fight nice. And we would work to get things done. Helping new people to interface, helping them break in, assigned under the direction of a mentor, but letting them know if they have some problems or something, they can come to the chaplain and find out instead of taking their dissatisfaction with the walk out of the house. And ideally, we are there for the command. Who cares for you, Chief? Who do you go to when you need to talk to somebody? Who do you need to go to? Now, my dad was in the Merchant Marine in World War II, and he was an engineer down in the boiler rooms. And no matter how you turn the scoops into the wind, you couldn't get the temperature down that engine room and under 104. And every now and then he'd tell his men, why don't you go up on deck and just get the stink blowed off you? Well, guess what? Chief, deputy, lieutenants, firefighters, sometimes you just need to talk to somebody to get the stink blowed off you. Who do you have? You evaluate by the body language, and we take proactive, preventative care. One of the major things that I'm stressing, and in the Maryland Fire Chiefs Association, is John Huglin's goal. His goal of having a trained fire EMS chaplain in all 370 plus units in the state of Maryland. Because he, like I and other people, are tired of doing firefighters' suicide funerals. Why don't we stop the suicide and get the person help? Now, you're not going to stop everybody. Some people just do. But there's a significant reduction because 80% of those people can be brought back. If you have somebody with a proactive mind, not a reactive resource, oh, call the chaplain, we need him for the funeral. Because chaplains provide psychological care, and the rapid psychological first aid is what is been given by Early and Flynn, is the compassionate and supportive presence designated the mitigation of acute stress and assess the need for continuing medical health. Some people just need to talk it out. Who are they going to talk to? Everybody that has a problem does not run to the psychologist or to the employee health. Sometimes you just need to talk it out. And that's where the rapid psychological first aid administered by the trained chaplain is. Here's the parallels that really make the difference. In the physical world of first aid, you have a basic life support. Then you'll have a advanced life support or paramedic. And then you'll be able to get into the medicine and surgery. That's for physical stuff. What about psychological things? Well, you have crisis intervention. Chaplains. Counseling. Move up to board certified or licensed counselors. The psychotropic drugs or psychotherapy and go into behavioral health for 72-hour stay. See, there's steps that can come. You don't just jump from nothing to 72-hour stay, because by then you have the fulmination has gone too far. So just as you want to catch a house fire by putting out that fire at the stove before you're blowing out smoke in windows in the attic, you want to take care of your people at the quickest and lowest level. Critical incident stress. There are many factors in these prevalences of critical incident stress. And the Federation of Fire Chaplains puts out this. It says that it's in work religion, it's in work relationships, it comes with personalities, it comes with firefighting duties. You might have seen the demonstration that they gave at the NCTS, where they had different colored, and they put water in and water in and water in, and all of a sudden it's red, and it goes from green to blue to yellow to red. Well, guess what? If you can de-stress and work with a person, it helps them get back focused on the job and good for their family as well. The spirituality of care. Chaplain is to be a chaplain to everyone, even the atheist, because they don't realize that they believe in nothing is believing. Because we're not there to push our form of Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism. We're there to listen and hear and understand what their problem is. We're triaging them as they will go. You evaluate the emotion and the psychosocial status of each person. Is this person one that just needs to get the stink blowed off? Or do we need to go with them and help them get some real in-depth help that may take 3 or 4 sessions to go? Being alert for these symptoms: hypervigility, emotional instability. Be alert to the sign of suicidal ideations. The perfect storm is when somebody says, in essence, I'm not worthy, no good, there's no future, there's no hope. Whoa, time out. The chaplain is trained to pick up on that and say, listen, son, or firefighter, sit down, let's talk. Because we want to stop the thinking about suicides because of the pain that they have. We want to stop doing the funerals. We want to get them help. Why? Because personnel are your most important asset for your department. And if you're not taking care of them, not just physically, but psychosocial spiritually, you're not fulfilling your full obligation. Interaction with personnel is vital. Sometimes they'll just talk to me, hey, Chappy. Yeah, what's up, John? Well, I don't know, I'm having problems with my son. Oh, tell me about it. We're having it so on and so on and so on and so on. And then, what do you think you should be doing? I don't know. And you help that person process, you see. We don't tell them what to do. But being able to be there and to be personal. Believe me, as we're doing this by the virtual is not personal. Why? Because quite frankly, I don't see, even if I had your pictures, and some of these I do, I don't see anything from the waist down. I don't see if you're tapping your foot or you're fiddling with your fingers or so on. The personal being there is so important, to be there. Now, everyone goes home. Item 13, psychological support. This is now by the National Fallen Firefighter Foundation, their psychological support. Talking about the National Suicide Hotline, because guess what? Ooh, let's look at this. Health and safety standards like NFPA 1500 standard on firefighters' health and safety require that assisted programs be made available to ensure that such services are there when they're needed. And what services? For whom? To ensure that the care is available whenever needed and that the care delivered represents the best practices currently available is the object of Initiative 13. Firefighters and their families must have access to counseling, and psychological support. Chief, many of you chiefs have taken a lot of psychology and so on, but do you have the time to spend? Or is this something a special staff officer can be managing for you? So I guess I got to ask this question. Since we see that it's not a nice thing to do, it's a regulation, 1500. We got to do it. Who is managing your psychosocial spirituality program? Now you have your fire safety officer managing the physical health program. What about the psychosocial spirituality? You can't ignore it. Is it you, Chief? Maybe it's one of your line officers. Oops, nobody? You're going to have to get going on this because it's a requirement. And I'll tell you right now, there have been fire chiefs, paid fire chiefs, who have been fired because there was a suicide in their house and an investigation found out, well, I knew he was having some problems, and they asked, what did you do about it? And he essentially did nothing, and he was fired. NFPA 1500. How about your chaplain? Hey, that's great that you got a chaplain, but is it a trained chaplain? Have you trained him, or is he a knife and fork chaplain? Ring bells, blow smoke, say grace once a year at the annual banquet. In conclusion, I want to give some extra time for you guys to ask questions. While on duty, the fire EMS chiefs, by reason of being responsible in superior, you can delegate authority, you cannot delegate responsibility, Chief. Hold the responsibility of providing psychosocial spirituality, safety, and care to all personnel without exception under their command. Additional burden can and may be eased by utilizing a trained, keyword, trained and effective fire chaplain to implement, administer, manage the chief's psychosocial spirituality safety program. This is a new concept. I don't expect people to jump on board and so on, but just to know that whether you want to do this or not, you're going to be held responsible. And what I'm saying is that who is managing? You got to ask that question because you're responsible, Chief. Line officers, who's managing your command? Maryland Fire Chiefs Corps, now we have set up 10 regional chaplains covering the 23 counties in Maryland. We have, when I made this slide, it was 49. We're up to 53 chaplains to date throughout the state. And the Chaplain Standards Committee is now working to develop these standards at different levels because we're using the EMS model. Not every single person that runs on an EMS run is going to be a paramedic. You got a driver and a basic life support, advanced life support. So we have chaplains that are at different levels, will be throughout the fire, but they will be trained to know when something is beyond their level, their contact the next level up, and you'll be able to get that chaplain for you. If you have chaplains, here is the training officer, Chaplain Cooper, and there is his email. We provide training seminars and we also have, and I've got this here, it's coming out right now. Matter of fact, a couple Sundays ago down in the Eastern Shore, MSFA held a safety peer support safety group, and this was given out to people. This is a trifold we put out, which will help you walk you through how to get a chaplain. And basically it is go to mdchief.org and to get the web page, resources, drop down, what name and so on, what do you want to do and how urgent is it? Drop down, what county are you in? And it drops down. What unit are you in? Drops down. And then it's punched and it's sent. And immediately it goes to 2 of the chaplains in the Maryland Fire Chiefs Corps. They then contact the regional chaplain who contacts the county chaplain who will contact the chaplain if you have one and is trained. Or if not, the regional chaplain will see that there's a chaplain who follows up on that request. You're always going to have a chaplain in the state of Maryland when you do it that way. May not be your chaplain, but wouldn't it be better to be your chaplain? Because the Maryland Fire Chiefs Chaplains, working together with the Maryland State Firemen Chaplains, are going to synergistically provide the ability to manage your psychosocial spirituality requirement. Because we serve everyone, without exception. Opening up now, I see we've got about 15 minutes left, or a little less than 15 minutes left. But there's my information right there. There's my email and cell phone. And if I have some questions here, I'll be answering. But if not, give me a call. Call me. And I don't care what time of night or day it is. I'm an old infantry chaplain. I've been knocked out of the bunk at dark 30 many times. Why? Because we're here for you. Chaplains are here for you. And I thank the MSFA for allowing me to introduce this, and I'm looking forward to being able to work together with MSFA and their chaplains, that together the MFCA and the MSFA together will build the strong fire EMS services in the state of Maryland. Thank you very much. God bless.
California Casualty has been endorsed by the MSFA for 10 years for its auto, home, and renter's insurance. It is our honor and privilege to protect those who protect our communities. Happy 10-year anniversary to the members of MSFA. Thank you for all that you do. For more information about our program, please visit www.calcash.com/MSFA. We look forward to seeing you at various local, county, and state events.